I'll call this July 26, 2022 North Liberty City Council meeting to order. Mary, can we have a roll call, please?
Bermal,
Aye.
City,
Here.
Wason,
Here.
Harrington.
Here.
Thank you. Item 3 is the approval of the agenda. I don't think there are any changes or modifications to be made for it. Have a motion.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item 4 then is our consent agenda. Is there anything on that consent agenda that you want to pull off and talk about separately? All right, a motion for the consent agenda, please.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carry. All right, item 5 is public comment. This is time reserved for items that are not on the agenda that anyone in the public would like to bring to our attention tonight. It's a long agenda. There's a lot of things to discuss. Anyone else out there with items not already on the agenda? Going once, going twice. Close public comment. Item 6 is our city engineer report. Kevin.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. I have 3 quick updates on project. The Dubuque Street Phase 1 project, they're still working in phases 4 and 5. Phase 5 is Penn Meadows Park, and phase 4 is the intersection of Dubuque Street and North Front. They completed the earthwork and the subgrade, and it turns out we had much better subgrade on this portion than the other portion of the project. And they've also placed all the rock subbase. They're planning on paving those areas, both Phase 4 and the parking lot in Penn Meadows Park, starting with the roadway first, either the end of this week or next week. So they're making progress. City Hall project, well, I can't believe it's almost here, but we're going to be releasing the plans and specs to bidders next week, August 2nd. And then we'll have a pre-bid meeting August 16th. Public hearing is planned for August 23rd. Bid opening August 30th for your consideration on September 13th. And lastly, Centennial Park, the events complex and splash pad conceptual design. We had a third and maybe a final meeting with staff last week. There could be one more follow-up meeting, but we're finalizing the concept plans, and we'll be issuing all the deliverables to city staff a week from this Friday. So that's coming up pretty soon. That's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Any questions from council? Kevin, the only question I have is how soon can we get to use all 4 lanes of Ranshaw Way?
Yeah, that's still a little ways out. There's not much work going on now. They're kind of at a standstill because most of the remaining work is the plantings and the landscaping portion, which can't start until August 15th. So they're still watering those center medians. So they're going to keep all the traffic control in place until they're done with all those plantings. So August 15th, I'd hate to guess how long it'll take them to put all the plantings in, but early fall.
So they still want to have the roadway partially cleared to do those plantings along the side of the road then as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Kevin. Item 7 is our city administrator report.
Okay,
Mr.
thanks.
Heyer.
Just one item for me tonight, and I'm excited to report that the International City Managers Association has recognized North Liberty, our community, specifically our Neighborhood Ambassadors Program for what they call their Community Partnership Award. We were one of 3 cities really in the world to receive recognition under this category. So we were pretty excited to hear that news. They'll feature us in an upcoming publication. I'll make sure everyone gets a copy of that. And then they'll also present an award at their annual conference in Columbus this year in September. So kudos to the communications team. Jillian and Nick spearheaded this project and continue to use the ambassadors to communicate and connect our community. So we're pretty excited about that recognition. That's what I have tonight, unless anyone has some questions.
Any questions for Ryan? Okay. Just a couple of things here on my end. Number one, Counselor Wason, thank you for running the meeting last week, 2 weeks ago. Went quickly and effectively. I appreciate you stepping in for that. And just before last council meeting, maybe a couple of days before that, we got a notice from South Slope that indicated that they had finally been able to complete all of the fiber to all of the homes in North Liberty here. Just recently, their last holdout was over at Gulfview, not because of the residents, but because of the owner. So they worked through those challenges with those owners, and I wanted to just thank them for getting that service at least to the doorstep of all of our businesses and residents here in North Liberty. I appreciate their commitment to our community. Item 9, council reports. Any items that you guys have been working on, attending, that you want to bring to our attention?
Eric and I attended the joint council meeting for the cities of Coralville, North Liberty, and Iowa City. We heard a great presentation on some of the progress that was done with GuideLink, and I'm very impressed with their level of work and the number of individuals that are being served by the community. So fantastic job there.
Thank you for going to that meeting, by the way. Those of you that went.
Rakisha was there also.
Yep.
Oh,
I heard
Rakisha was there. I'm sorry.
She was kind of in the background, a little bit of a, yeah. Or was that you? You wanted to sit in the background, but Ryan said you had to sit up at the table.
Probably
That's
me.
what it was. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
And the MPO meeting was a couple weeks
Yes,
ago.
yep.
And so basically, it was just housekeeping and getting everything set up for the next year programming and of everything and stuff. And then a little bit of an update on from the DOT about the interchange down there, and they're moving right along, they said, but it's still going to be a while.
Thank you.
I'd just like to congratulate all the 4-Hers and FFA members who had projects at the county fair this week. I stopped down there this evening, walked through the buildings. I try to do that at least once a year. And saw a few North Liberty residents who had some pretty high rankings. So it was good to see, and congratulations to all those kids.
That's right in your wheelhouse, isn't it?
A little bit.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Did you have something also? No? Okay. Thank you all. All right, moving into business then. Item 10 is Solomon's Landing, and this is resolution number 2022-66. This is a resolution modifying conditions for the preliminary plat for Solomon's Landing, North Liberty, Iowa. Could I start with getting this conversation open with the motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Does anybody have any questions? Ryan gave us a pretty good heads up in the note and your conversations with him. Anything else that you'd like to add?
So just to clarify for my own, so they've done additional traffic work, and so we've decided that we don't need to worry about the intersection for a while. But when they get to where they want to build closer to that, then they'll have to have the that intersection area done before it. So
Precisely.
but this way they can keep going and not worry about everything right now. Okay, I got it.
And I should have asked this before, but as far as making sure that they aren't doing any work on those properties where we're saying they're not going to be allowed to do work, that's just going to be an internal thing with site plans things. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won't be allowed to pull any sort of permit for those outlots.
All right. Mary, can we have roll call on this, please?
Harrington,
Aye.
City,
Aye.
Wason,
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 11. The one time of the year we also look forward to seeing Tiana. This is our 2022A bond sale, and this is resolution number 2022-77, a resolution authorizing and approving a loan agreement providing for the sale and issuance of general obligation corporate purpose bonds series 2022A and providing for the levy of taxes to pay the same. Could I just have a motion to open this part of the meeting, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Tiana, could you take it away for us?
Sure. Well, Ryan, did you want to
Ryan.
start?
Well, I can, sure. Thank you. Well, as you know, we've been preparing for this sale now for better than a month, close to 2 months, at least in terms of action at the council meeting. The sale is for a couple projects. The two big projects are the Southwest Growth sewer extension or utility extension project, and then partial funding for Rancho Way Phase 5. And we had some good results today. given the circumstances, certainly not where we want it, certainly not where they were last year at this time. And I think I would let Tiana talk a little bit more about that.
So we did receive bids today. You got 8 plus 1. So there were 9 total bids, but one of them was non-conforming. And so you're going to see that at the bottom of your spreadsheet. There was a bid from First National Capital Markets that just didn't follow all the rules outlined in the terms of offering. And so that had been the lowest bid. We did have to throw it out, but the bid behind it was only 4 basis points higher. So it wasn't a terrible loss to the city. And, fair is fair. It wasn't conforming. So we did have to reject it. But you'll see that the winning bid was presented by Robert W. Baird. It's a huge syndicate. It always is. In this big paper here, we actually have 37 banks in 20 states that were interested in having some part in this bond issue. The TIC was 2.82. During planning, I had planned for about a 2.9%. The interest that you're paying is not actually lower, but that's because you got $173,000 or so more proceeds to spend by not resizing the debt. So, debt service is still pretty much where we had estimated it at, around $900,000 to $940,000 each year. There are 4 different sources of payment for this. Most of it is sort of split evenly between TIF and sewer, and there's a little bit for water and for your debt service levy. Only about $12,000 a year is actually going to be impacting the levy. Everything else is being paid by other sources. The city did receive a AA2 rating again. You've had that rating for a while. Moody's says that the rating reflects your growing tax base, your strong reserves. The only challenge they note is, again, sort of just the size of the city. And they say there's a slightly elevated debt burden, but I don't think it's anything that you should be concerned about at this point. You do amortize your debt pretty rapidly, and you grow very rapidly. So that's not something that I would think that you need to be concerned about. They cite factors that could lead to an upgrade would be continued growth in your tax base and resident wealth. And anything that would lead to a downgrade would be a growth of your debt burden and a major deterioration of reserves. But there's nothing that in what we've planned that I think we would see that. Moody's has always been very favorable when we talk to them. They look upon you highly. And this is somewhat older data, but at the last time I looked at this, there are only 13 communities out of 70 with ratings in Iowa that had AA2 ratings. There are 6 AA1s and 3 AAAs. So out of 70 communities, you're in roughly the top 20. And so that might change a little bit here and there with fresher data, but you're still, in the top third of all the communities in Iowa that carry a rating. So I hope you're proud of that accomplishment. Robert W. Baird was the winning bid, and I would recommend that you award to them. And now would be the time if you have any questions for me before doing that.
The only thing I would make is just an observation. The amortization schedule, you mentioned it just a moment ago, is 12-year schedule. So it's a pretty aggressive schedule than you would see in those. I just want to make that comment. Would you agree? I mean, is 12 is a pretty aggressive number? Or is 15 to 20 more in line with what might normally be for an amortization schedule for this?
Well, so for general obligation bonds in the state of Iowa, 20 is the absolute maximum by state law. For a deal this size, 20 is pretty standard. And, I presented a few options, but, Ryan is confident that you've got the resources to pay it off quicker, and it saves you interest. But it's something that we did discuss. I think we looked at 10, 12, and 15, and maybe 20 as well. So we look at a few different amortizations before deciding what's going to fit best with the city. But, I would always say if you have the resources to pay it, then pay it more quickly. Right. This will be callable in, I think, around the 8 or 9 year mark. So even though we're seeing a little bit higher coupons right now, if those are to come down, you have the opportunity to refund the debt. And, the good news is, I guess, if they don't come down, it means that you sold them in the best market you could have. And so, they'll stay outstanding. But 3% debt is still historically quite low. And this quick amortization, I do think, helps keep some of that interest in your pocket as opposed to paying it to bondholders. So that's a good
Absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely. Do you guys have any questions for Tiana? Ryan, anything else?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you once again. It's
Appreciate
always
you.
nice to see you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Without further ado, then, could we have a roll call, Mary?
Wason,
Aye.
Smith, oh, sorry, City,
Aye.
Rimmel,
Hi.
Arrington.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you again, Tiana.
Thank you.
Safe travels back home.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Item 12 is our West Side Fire Station project, and item A on that is public hearing regarding proposed West Side Fire Station project. Is there anyone in the audience to make comment during this time period about that? Nothing? You coming up, Harold?
I'm Harold Cameron. Apparently, I am the owner of the land that is in question for the new station. I was approached a year ago following the, I think in August,
Sounds right.
somewhere there. Fire chief and Ryan here were among those that I met with on site. And Ryan had at that time a schematic that he had drawn up that placed it further to the west next to the school. And I questioned the placement there next to the school as to every time a fire truck or emergency vehicle would leave, all the kids would jump up to the window. I was the second one that had, or in contention, the Smalley property to the further to the west was identified, whether they couldn't meet Greg's expectations for payment or just as it was told me, it was hard to develop. So that's why the location came to my doorstep. I learned yesterday, talking to my attorney, that the placement next to Harvest Estates was not considered favorable. Grant, you're kind of nodding your head.
I don't want to step on what you're saying.
No, go ahead.
I had a conversation with Mr. Sigafus, indicating that there had been a question about whether it would be appropriate to move the station further west, and I alerted Mr. Sigafus that there was a question on that. Not that there was a recommendation from staff one way or the other. I think Mr. Russ
But
mentioned-
you had conversation with the previous mayor, correct?
we had received a communication from Mayor Donahue
Yes.
suggesting that
It'd be moved further west.
that's my understanding. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So if it was not advantageous to have a fire station in the backyard of those residents along Harvest Estates, which now enjoy a cornfield, why would it be any advantageous for me to have it further west where it'd be flanked three sides by a fire station?
Yeah, we're not disagreeing with you, Harold.
Okay, okay.
Our proposal is to keep it to the property that we talked about, that you've seen.
Okay, and the chief, upon meeting with Ryan, he had a map that I'm sure you've all seen or should have, if you've come this far in negotiations, of the zones of the RMZ zones. And the circles that were identified on that put the proposed site in close proximity to the or the outer rings of that to the existing station. Great deal of overlap. My question is, why wasn't it moved further to the west? And I told at the time that I had met with Ryan and the chief that the, forward thinking, the city owned a great deal of land where the credit union clear to the north, where Geico is. The city owned that at one time.
No,
Yes, it did.
I don't think so.
West of Kansas.
Not to my knowledge.
Maybe it was before you
Could,
were
could
managers.
have been, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But that was more forward thinking. You'd have great, north-south access to the both interchanges.
I think Mr. Tron was suggesting it might be where the water tower is.
Yeah, that would be the only city-owned land west of Kansas.
No, the water tower and the 40 south of that, or south of the water tower is Russ Jardine's, or was Jardine family.
Not city.
Okay. But it looks to me, it was pointed out to me that the fire station had advantageous location on my property in close proximity to the park. That it would have a joint community action there, or a safe house then if there was something there at the that would warrant shelter from those that were in the park to seek shelter in the firehouse. Since that, the footprint has grown to 4 acres with the addition of some joint venture with Johnson County Emergency Management, I assume.
That is potential, but nothing has been agreed upon. In fact, as my understanding is, they're looking to put their building over closer to Tiffin at this point. And Bill, I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't know if you have any additional information.
My name is Bill, I'm the Assistant Fire Chief here on behalf of the department and Chief Plotz. There's been some conversations with emergency management as well as with Johnson County Ambulance. It would be in our interest to share services and work, particularly with Johnson County Ambulance, to try to get the ambulance closer to our community for emergency transport to the hospital. And so those conversations have happened, but there's nothing beyond conversation at this point as far as the build out and those types of details are just yet to be worked out, of course. So that's kind of where we're at with those.
So the renderings that were provided with the city attorney to my attorney, with the layout, with the detention basin and the building to the north, plus the fire station, that's out the window now?
First time learning of it, Harold.
Okay.
Those were.
Well,
yeah.
what we wanted to do is to make sure the site is big enough to accommodate any of those things. So we've talked we've talked with Johnson County Ambulance for a number of years. We know that eventually we want an ambulance in that facility. Not in a separate building probably, but within that same footprint of the fire station. Then we had conversations with Johnson County Emergency Management, informal, about potentially having some sort of facility there for them. The challenge there is timeline. When I last talked to the EMA director, they needed a building there much sooner than we would be ready to construct anything. We wanted to show it on, I wouldn't call it a rendering, I'd call it a sketch, in terms of that's our worst case scenario, but the biggest concept that we would need, and that's why we went with the 4 acres. And also to have obviously turnarounds, and so the trucks can enter from both sides.
Both sides, I understand.
Yeah. So, but what you're seeing there is simply a concept. We have not hired an engineer to do it, or an architect to do any sort of modeling for a building.
Well, there was engineer consulting with the temporary easement, the sewer easement, the
Yeah, for the
auditors-
site, nothing on the
site
building.
plan,
Yeah,
yes.
nothing on, yes,
Okay.
for the site, but not
Okay.
for the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're still stuck with the 4 acres requirement,
Yes, that's what we would like to see.
even though Johnson County may never deem that site.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Pretty large site just for a firehouse. Without
I've
Johnson County,
pretty sure,
either emergency management or ambulance.
Bill, I don't mean to put you on the spot again, but do you recall the acreage for the newest fire station in Iowa City? Because I know the chief had talked with folks in Iowa City about ideal size for a newer station, and that's where he came up with those numbers. So,
Well, you remember, I'm from Iowa City. I'm very well of the 4 locations of.
Sure.
Of,
well, maybe you know the size. I didn't mean to. Do you happen to remember?
well, it'd be
what the-
number 4, wouldn't it?
No, it'd be the number 5 station, which is the south side of town. That's in a residential area, sort of in a corner lot. It's going to be a drive-through station, but again, I can't tell you the number of acreage, though, sorry. But it's a fairly decent footprint as well. Station 4 is the one by ACT. That's the newest station that they built there. That too is a pull-through station, and it's pretty undersized. We have issues with parking. We do a lot of training at those stations, a lot of joint training with other communities, and things quickly become limited when we don't plan accordingly. So I'm sure Chief Plotz did his homework in determining the 4 acres as being necessary.
Yeah, you want to keep in mind too, Harold, that on those Iowa City sites, I don't believe they have to provide on-site stormwater management. And this one will have to, because we'll have to follow our own rules. So we want to make sure, I guess the fire department of the city, they want to buy a small enough site to pay the least amount of money, but they don't want to buy it too small to find out when they design it that, oops, we should have bought another 1/4 acre or something to make sure that there's enough room for the stormwater management along with it.
Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. True, true. Is there anyone else in the public to make comment on our West Side Fire Station project? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing now. Item B is our resolution number 2022-78, and this is a resolution approval to proceed with a public improvement, the West Side Fire Station project. And I'm going to get a motion to open this discussion, please.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Ryan, do you want to help us out?
Yeah.
Get us going here?
So this has been, as you may recall, this has been something we've been evaluating for quite some time. And as Mr. Cameron alluded to, we've looked at and evaluated a number of different sites along Kansas Avenue and on St. Andrews Drive. And I think I've showed you all the map that the chief has put together and is showing the other stations in the area, including the 2 in Coralville, the 1 in Tiffin, ours, and how this one would be positioned in kind of the radiuses around those areas. Not that they necessarily dictate service area, but gives you an idea of how close you are or how close a fire station is to certain neighborhoods. And so that was one of our main drivers in finding a site. And then we also wanted to find a site that worked well, that was big enough to accommodate what we know we're going to need immediately and what we anticipate needing down the road. And then finding a piece of property that was essentially shovel-ready. And when we got out a little bit further onto Kansas, there was issues there with having to run another sewer line quite a length and at a very costly project to do that would add on already to the building and site development. And so, again, we evaluated a couple areas out there. We evaluated a couple other areas on St. Andrews Drive. And, to Mr. Cameron's point earlier, we know it's all going to be residential out there. That's what the long-range plan calls for. That's what it's zoned. And so we're trying to minimize the impacts of the neighborhood as well. And that's one of the reasons we like it right across the street from the park, in addition to the potential of having a clearinghouse or an area for our folks to gather when we have big events out there. And then also from the standpoint of weather, it's not as if we'd send everyone from Blues and Barbecue over there. We'd have an event long canceled before the weather got too bad. But if folks were in the park and something snuck on them, they would have, we could get folks over there. So there were a number of things to look at when we first set this money aside. My thought was, well, this isn't going to be too hard. We should be able to find a piece of property fairly easily. Well, it's not been that easy, but we feel this one will be best for our fire service and something that we can move on in terms of getting a project going relatively quickly in the next couple of years, a construction project. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we're at. And tonight's resolution is simply authorizing us to start we'd go out and get an appraisal and start the negotiating then with Mr. Cameron. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's fair. It does a little more than that. This is establishing a preliminary site location, so it does authorize the use of eminent domain, but that is just a necessary precondition. You have to do this before you could exercise those powers later. Before you do that, you get an appraisal. You establish that appraisal as being just compensation. If the appraisal comes back as $1 zillion and the council says, "Whoa, try again," then there's no obligation to proceed from this point. That being said, if we start causing a property owner to accrue legal costs, and we call the whole thing off after we file for condemnation, we would have to pay their attorney's fees. But that's only if we actually begin the condemnation part. The next part here is an appraisal, which has been kind of queued up already. That takes place, and then it's sent to Mr. Cameron for review, and 10 days later we can have a conversation. That appraisal under this circumstances would represent generally our opening offer, provided that this body approves the use of that appraisal and doesn't send us back looking for another one. Happy to answer questions about it, but it's there are lots of exit ramps from this point if the council were to so choose.
What kind of questions do you guys have? I got one note to make, but it's just
Forgive me, I'm not quite sure if I understood Mr. Cameron's concerns and if we actually answered his concerns. I'm a little unclear about his question about the location and in respect to where house is. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was your concern whether or not it's going to be closer to your home or? Okay.
I'm a resident of Iowa City.
Okay.
Yesterday, my attorney received a call from your city attorney that former mayor Terry Donahue had been in contact with one of the residents of Harvest Estates that would border the site on the east side. And they did not, at that time, think it was appropriate siting. And my attorney and your city attorney had a conversation that it was desirable to have it move further to the west.
I think you need to clarify that.
Yeah. I think that's not wrong. I think after the council received email from Mayor Donahue, we I reached out to Mr. Sigafus to let him know that there was a question that might come up at tomorrow's meeting. This is not the possible relocation of the site had not come up, and I wanted to make sure that he and Mr. Cameron had the chance to discuss it and speak to that. And if they thought that was a great idea, then come and speak to that. Or if they thought it was a terrible idea, come and speak to that and say why. But what I didn't want to have happen was for this meeting to be the first chance, or the first that Mr. Cameron heard of it. And so I spoke to Mr. Sigafus. He said, "Thanks very much. If we have anything to share with you, we'll pass it along." And I haven't heard anything until I spoke with Harold tonight.
Awesome.
So, I hope that's, I wouldn't want to characterize what was in Mayor Donahue's email. I think you all received it. So I wouldn't say one way or the other. All I said was, as I've said here.
Yeah, and I think I'll chime in here. I replied to Mayor Donahue about that because oddly enough, I kind of had a similar question when Ryan first brought this to my attention. I thought the location was kind of odd over there. However, after hearing of, it's not as if we've got the world to choose from and we just chose to pick this piece of property. All things considered, this offers us the best location to serve the community in a timely fashion, in a location that will be the most minimal to develop. So my thoughts were, and I think what Terry had said in his email, we're wondering about putting it further to the west, even to the roundabout that's there for future Alexander Way, would cause some type of a connection to sewer, at least back over to Harvest Estates. There would be a cost and an easement or some inconvenience at the minimum to bring that back over there. And it doesn't necessarily serve the interest of Chief Plotz in trying to be close to the Centennial Park to develop this sense of community right across the street. It's a little bit adjacent, not necessarily across the street. My thought initially was to have it down by the elementary school, and Harold brought that up in his first comments. And while the kids are in session, if a fire truck leaves the station, it's definitely going to be cause to bring them out the windows. But what I didn't understand is when a fire truck is leaving the station, it's not the noise of the engine so much as it's the loudness of it that goes right out the front of the truck and that would blow right into homes that will be right across the street up there next to North Bend Elementary School. So having it in this location takes away some of that, takes away a great impact of the noise that comes out of a fire truck as it's leaving the station because it's blowing across 40 acres of open parkland. So I actually asked Assistant Chief Smoke to clarify whether that was necessary leaving the station, if it was on or not, and not to put words in his mouth. He says it's not something that they necessarily will say yes or no to or give you. You will leave the fire station with the truck with the siren on, unless someone feels like they don't need to, but there is some safety, some liability out there. So having it in this spot blows that fire engine noise right out the front across Centennial Park and not in somebody's front door. Although it is anywhere, any of those homes in that residential area, 40, 80, 120 acres are going to hear a fire truck leaving the fire station. Doesn't matter where they are on that space. But St. Andrews Drive is nearly ideal for serving our community and serving this area in the future.
When you look at the map and then look at a topo overlay, it actually makes a good sense to put it there. It's close to the playground, so there's a safety thing there. I mean, it's a big area. The building will not be that big, and we can, when they design things, they can site it to minimize the impact on the neighborhood. The other fire station is in a residential area as well. And that's just the way it is and stuff. I have sirens going up and down my street all the time. So running out to the interstate and coming back and forth and getting into Tiffin and stuff. So it's just the way it is. So, and if it may be actually better because, it's like, hey, I'm right next to the fire station, add a little safety to it. So, and just from the EMA standpoint, Dave has not said anything lately to me about that, but he's always looking to maximize capability. And I know that they pre-position things all over the county and stuff. So it's just a good way to disperse things. So
Sure.
Somewhere down the road, that would be a good idea. So I'm in favor of this particular area.
Ashley, back to you. Did we answer your question?
Oh, yes.
Did you get some satisfaction?
Mhm.
All right. Do you or others have any comments or thoughts on this?
No, that was, the clarification was helpful with that. But yeah.
Grant had his hand raised, so.
I did, and I'm reconsidering it. Thank you, Eric. Sorry.
I get kind of blind.
Good idea, Mayor. Thank you.
I just wanted, there was some talk about, and I realize we haven't gotten into design, and things like that, but talk about a pull-through station, and we're not talking about pulling through to Harvest Street. We're talking about the pull-through being all contained on this 4 acre
Yes.
plot.
Correct.
Kind of like your garage. Just do
Right.
that. Yeah.
No, exactly. Well, much better, much nicer than my garage, I'm sure.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Mary, can we have
Siddick?
roll call, please? Yeah.
Siddick,
Aye.
Brumel,
Aye.
Harrington,
Aye.
Weezer.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all. Thank you for the comments and for your time and consideration here, staff, on this topic. Item 13 is our North Side Park, and this is also item A is public hearing regarding proposed North Side Community Park project. Are there any members of the audience here to speak in this public comment for our North Side Park? You are up. You could just let us know who you are, please.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Molly Parker, and I'm a lawyer with Shuttleworth and Ingersoll. We represent the Mead Family Real Estate Limited Partnership. I don't know if we were classmates or not, but I think we are.
You don't know if we were classmates?
Oh, I'm off to a horrible start.
There you go.
You look
Don't remember
you, Molly.
familiar. You look okay. I think you actually graduated a year behind me, maybe.
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
I was not held back.
Hopefully that was a little bit of recovery there. So Shuttleworth and Ingersoll represents the Mead Family Real Estate Limited Partnership. The Mead family owns the land that North Liberty is considering for the Northside Community Park project, and I'm here to respectfully request that the council simply table Resolution 2279, which is the resolution of approval to proceed with a public improvement for a period of 2 months. To be clear, the Mead family does not dispute that there is community value in a park, that is a valid purpose for the council to be pursuing. And public parks are one of various means to improve a community. Importantly, the land that the council is considering taking for use as a park does include land near Highway 65 that has also significant commercial potential, and that's for the city as well. Use of that land could also, that specific area of the land near Highway 965 could also benefit the city in terms of commercial development. Using a different portion of the Mead family's land may allow the same access to the same area of park, the same resources, while still preserving that ability to use that more appropriate commercial land to promote business and industry. It would also not decrease the ability to access the park given the planned extension of what I believe is Jones.
You got it.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So equally notable is the fact that the Mead family is ready and willing to engage in negotiations with the city regarding the sale and the use of the land. We're simply requesting that we have a little bit more time to engage in a more informal negotiation process with the city. As City Attorney Leens was just explaining, that the formal initiation of these city proceedings does trigger sort of a cascade of deadlines, of requirements both on the part of the landowner but also on the part of the city to obtain appraisals in a certain amount of time. And it just creates, I think, a more formal environment that we're hoping we could have equal, if not greater, success for both sides if we keep it informal for just a short period of time longer, instead of engaging in that sort of very statutorily prescribed process at this point. So with that, we are proposing that the city table the resolution for a period of 2 months to allow the Mead family and the city to engage in good faith, informal negotiations about the best way to proceed forward with the park project. I'm happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability.
Mayor?
Yes. Did we go to school? We didn't go to school together.
We
We
did.
did?
We did. You look great. Molly, does Shuttleworth represent the entire Mead Family Limited Real Estate Partnership?
It is
Not intended to be a
In
hard question.
process, I believe. So I think there is some alignment that's still happening.
All right. And it was Shuttleworth that actually suggested we
Right.
begin the condemnation process.
Understood.
For the purpose of allowing that partnership to pursue possible tax deferment benefits and other things which are far beyond my ken.
Absolutely. Yes,
okay.
and that's my understanding as well. And so I think that the initiation of the proceedings is certainly not something that's a surprise. You know, it's not that this is the first interaction that Shuttleworth has had regarding this. We're simply just asking for a bit more time to engage in informal negotiations before initiating kind of the formal statutory procedure.
One more question?
Please, yes.
And not to put too fine a point on it, I know there are 5 members, is my understanding.
That's my understanding.
And I understand that Gary Strite represented 2 of those 5, and the other 3 had representation from an attorney out of Des Moines, who I have not been made aware of. Is all of that correct?
That's my understanding as
Okay.
well, although I think probably talking to Gary would give you greater clarity.
Wonderful.
And I believe that sort of aligning the members of the group is still a work in progress, but moving in a positive direction.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Sure.
If it okay if I ask.
Please do,
So
yes.
just so I can understand, you're not asking to hold off because they're proposing a different area of land to be sold. It's the same portion, but
I think that would be a point of potential negotiation. I don't think there's resistance to use of any of the property. I think there's a question about whether there may be an area of the property belonging to the family that, you know, using the same square footage, if we, you know, make it a rectangle instead of a square or square instead, you know, maybe there's a more appropriate sort of footprint. So I think that's a point of discussion, but I don't think that there is resistance to use of any of the land for this purpose. It's just what's going to be best in terms of the footprint.
okay. Thank you.
And Molly, for clarification, we don't oftentimes engage with public comment, but I think this is very worthwhile, so I'm glad that you are. And I do say that if you have some questions for Molly right now, please let her know, because we don't normally engage in public comment.
Is there a way that we, as a city, can ask for those 2 months for the family to not be in discussion for entertaining possible negotiations for sale of that land with any other parties?
I think that would certainly be a point that I can bring to my colleagues who might have a little bit more influence over that ultimate decision making. But my understanding is that this is really a good faith attempt to engage in negotiations with the city. So it's not sort of a ploy to be bringing in alternative offers. It's really an attempt to make sure that this is a circumstance that fits well for both the city and for the landowner. So I don't feel like I can bind
Sure.
anyone to that, but I don't hear that as a totally off the table request.
Sure, because I mean, from what I'm hearing is it's an exploratory period for them to determine highest and best use from their standpoint. And if they're trying to figure out highest and best use, it seems like their conversations would be with alternative parties that would be potential buyers. So good faith on our part would be, you know, that they would not be discussing the potential sale with any other parties.
Sure. And what I'm more than happy to take that back to the decision makers here, and then, you know, have people get back in touch with you. I just unfortunately don't feel like I can agree to that here on the spot, and I apologize for that. But I do think that your point is well taken, and I appreciate that the city wants to meet in a position where you're not bumping this project out only to lose the opportunity. Sure. I do think that the goal would be collaboration with the city to determine what's the best use of the property, rather than to try to do it unilaterally and then put anyone at a disadvantage.
Sure.
Nope, we can talk about it.
Well, I'm going to kind of lean on you then. So what would you advise us to do? Because tabling it does throw a few things up
Yeah.
in the air right now that
But it
Councilor
could-
Burmella
Are
has
we
asked.
done? I'm
Yeah,
sorry. are
I'm
we
so
done?
sorry
you
to
wanna say
interrupt.
comment?
I have nothing else to say. I appreciate all of your
anything,
time.
Yeah,
No, I just wondered if we were still in the public hearing or if we were.
let's,
Yeah, thank you for that point. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you so much.
Does anyone else have public comment to offer during this time period? Okay, I will now close public hearing. Thank you very much, Counselor. So, Grant, given this information, can you provide us some guidance here, please?
Sure. So the process that we've begun here requires an identification with some particularity of the parcels in question that we're talking about. And so we have legal descriptions that have been prepared and thus and such. So there is some additional work that would need to be done. My understanding is that the proposal is to talk about identifying a different parcel or parcels or combination thereof to acquire. And there's nothing that would ever prevent us from just reaching an agreement and buying land for a park, not under threat of eminent domain. But if an agreement couldn't be reached, then that's the reason the city has those tools, and it's to affect what the council believes is the appropriate path for public good and so on. So this would necessarily reset a clock, right? We have to have this hearing had to take place at least 30 days after a notice that I sent out in June last year, or last month, because this is agricultural land. There's certain processes that have to place. There's publication of notice and public hearing and mailing notice, and then we have this period here. All before we get to the part where we have an appraisal and the rest of that. So what this body can do is you can act on this, or you can table it, but we would have to, if the idea is if you want to instruct staff to look for a different parcel, and I don't want to go too far afield, there would be work that would need to be done to identify that before we would again be able to move forward with the eminent domain process. So you're kicking it out a couple months at least. I mean, from when we started up again. So there would be a delay, but this is a park. I don't know if there's, council needs to determine the urgency and whether the price of land is going to go up or down, that sort of thing. So I suspect, not an appraiser, that the price of land will go up, and I suspect it'll be more expensive this time 3 months from now, right?
Along with the cost of
The other
financing.
period is that they would be able to get their own appraisal, and we can have, everyone can be more informed, but that also, may cause us to not have the best price available. So it's really, there's not a,
Grant, if we move forward with this, would that prevent us from negotiating a different shape?
no. We can certainly have a conversation about about acquiring a different parcel, but that would involve us abandoning this process at some point in favor of another.
As you mentioned earlier, though, there's a number of exit ramps, even if we approve tonight.
That's correct. In so doing, as I said, the risk for doing that is you get far enough along and actually initiate condemnation proceedings, then we're on the hook for legal fees, all the legal expenses. Is that right, Molly? Yeah.
I believe so, but I defer to you.
I won't ask you what your hourly rate is, but that would be an additional expense. So there are costs potentially associated with that.
Can we be running parallel conversations then if we move ahead in this process and act on it, and then at the same time work on a side agreement that might change the shape of the land in the park?
I think we can, as long as you guys are advised of the risks and costs of doing that, potential risks.
And can you re-clarify those for us, the risks of doing so? If we run concurrent conversations,
At some point, we run out of exit ramps that don't cost us money with moving forward with purchasing these parcels, right? We've identified, this is all predicated on us identifying that we need about this much space for about this much park in this location. And we don't need 120 acres. We don't need 80, we need 42 or whatever this is. Right? And we have a plan in mind. But so we need to make sure that what we're proposing to negotiate to purchase satisfies the public purpose we have in mind for, is there a park that fits here? Is this the, and you can have multiple proposals considered, but at some point, we would need to drop the condemnation action in favor of the other or move forward with it without, and there would be expense associated with that.
So what will happen in the next 2 months then if we take action tonight to continue down this in the condemnation process? And I use that word, only as a matter of process. How much
Should have an
time,
appraisal.
resources is this going to entail?
So we're having a before and after appraisal done, which contemplates all of the Meade Family Limited Real Estate Partnership. They have X amount of acres beforehand. They'll have X minus Y afterwards, right? And we would need to we might be able to use some of that. The appraiser might be able to reuse some of that data that they've just done to calculate a new appraisal for the new parcel if it's some configuration of the land that's there.
Okay.
But generally appraisals take 5 to 8 weeks. And we got the ball rolling on this a while ago in anticipation of tonight. So we might need to get a new appraisal. We might need there might be some redoubling of costs that would be involved in running both tracks simultaneously. Yeah.
What are the implications with either decision in terms of our relationship with the Meade family?
Well, they're right here. I think that we've had really good conversations with Gary Strite, who is just an outstanding person. I will also personally vouch for Molly as being an outstanding human being and probably a pretty darn good lawyer. I expect that we've had ongoing relationships, and I think Mr. Rusnak could say we had great relationships with the Meade family for a number of things going on to date. So I don't think that we're hurting anyone's feelings. I think that these are savvy folks who understand that we're operating in what we think is the city's best interest, and you're making the best decision you can with the information you have available.
I have a second question.
Sure.
Is there any way to massage the dates if we were to proceed to give them a longer period within proceedings so that they don't feel stressed for time, or does
No, there are some dates that are set by statute, right? And so we would need to, if we move forward in accordance with Iowa Code Chapter 6B, then those are the dates we will need to use. They tend to deal in a minimum amount of time, so some of them can be extended a certain period, but they, and I forget the maximum amount of time that things can be extended. So there is some room, but we'd have to operate within the confines of that statute in order to have the ability to use eminent domain. No is probably a sharper answer so not very much is a better answer than no.
So to reiterate, the cost of the appraisal is as an expense that might be foregone, or a good portion of it over the next couple of months if we go down this track.
3,200, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So I just, well, that was one question, is how much would to reappraise? So, and then this is kind of a funny shaped projected area. Do we have a particular reason that we did it that way? And then, I mean, I know that was that commercial area that is now kind of not there on the curve there.
I can answer that. That's an existing tax parcel.
Yep.
That's just the existing. So what you're looking at there is this quarter, and that quarter, less this other subdivision that exists there. So those are just the remnants. And staff, I believe, felt that, and Mr. Rusnak can speak with more particularity about why this is the right shape or not.
Yeah, so we were looking at that 40-acre range. We were also trying to be cognizant of what would remain as a developable piece of property. We have actually 3 streets that terminate into the Meade property, so we need some kind of circulation with respect to that. And those are south end of the Meade property. If you looked at, we looked at all of the property along Ranshaw. We felt that there was some commercial value towards the south end, towards Mead Drive there. You also have an area that would be along Future Jones Boulevard, those two parcels along there. That's about 44 acres. We just felt this offered us the best. I think ideally you'd have a square section or a quarter section or something like that, but offered the city the ability to get to the 40 acres and left the southern portion with more development potential. We do think now that Jones Boulevard is going to go in that location, that corner that would be the northeast corner of Jones and Penn would become more valuable at that point as well.
Do you guys have any other questions? I think I'm kind of leaning towards running this concurrently and moving on the path that we created here tonight, but giving Grant and the Mead family and representatives an opportunity to work informally for something different there. If I heard correctly, the only downside to that is we might lose $3,200 or a portion of it in the appraisal. And am I okay in what I've said there?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other costs, time, hourly rates for certain attorneys in the back of the room that we might have to consider?
Well, that won't happen unless and until we have another action at another meeting with a resolution approving an appraisal. There are certain prescriptions we have against negotiating for property under threat of condemnation. There are timeframes, so if the Mead family would be willing to waive negotiation statutory timeframes, we can talk about that.
Okay.
So I think we have a reasonable path to talk about alternatives in lieu of moving forward with this. If they want to propose an alternative, then I think we have the means to do that.
Okay. And at the same time, we also have, we can set the course and move down this path for the property that we have.
That
in
much is
place.
certain, yes. Without any doubt, moving forward on acquiring this land is available.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would there be any benefit to maybe delaying it for 2 weeks to take a little pressure off everybody?
Any benefit, sure.
Can we do that though?
Yes, we have 2 weeks. We don't have an appraisal yet.
No, but your notice went out. We had to do.
Yeah, no, it has to take place after 30 days. So we have 2 weeks after that window. I wouldn't delay it 30 days without having to potentially restart this. But 2 weeks I don't think I'm fairly certain, in fact, would not cause procedural problems. I will be busy, but that's not your problem. That would be possible.
Can I ask one additional question of
Sure.
staff here? There was a little bit of discussion, right, about commercial, the commercial value of this property. Are there, on Rancho Way, are there impediments to using some of this property for commercial?
I think it becomes a market condition. I think the commercial land use is more attractive as you get closer to that Penn Ranshaw Way intersection, and then it becomes more marginal as you move along. So I just think it's a demand thing, and I've had a grocery store owner looking at a parcel on the Mead property at that very south end. And so I think it just becomes a market condition thing, and it's remained vacant for all of these years. So the demand hasn't been met yet, but we're really healthy from a commercial land use standpoint, at those major intersections. And as you go south along Ranshaw between Forever Green and Penn, it just becomes weaker as you go north.
We're not restricting access off of Rancho Way, though, are we? Or are we?
Per our 965 plan, we are allowed it is a restricted access, but we'll have certain locations. It's not just a free for all that you can have several. So there's a couple of locations along that frontage.
Okay.
And I would say that the area across Patchaway, Pasha, thank you. That is a signalized intersection right there that would that would be an access there on the west side that I think would be a commercial development with a signalized intersection there would be very healthy and in higher demand. I would not anticipate another signal happening, as you go further north.
So I don't get a vote on this stuff, but I think what I heard Russ say in his last comments about the development potential on the south side of where this potential park location is probably more likely than you being used for park space down there. So again, I don't get to vote on this, but I don't think it'll make much of a difference if we waited 2 weeks or not. I don't think there's probably better space identified in this part of the city that is better suited for park than this space right here. I would prefer for us to just continue down the path that Grant and staff have worked on, let them then on the side negotiate and talk informally and see if that can be made any better. But based on Russ's analysis, I don't know if it could be improved to help the city in the way that this park would in this location. So I'll let you guys take it from here.
Are we making a motion to move forward with what's planned and you all will negotiate?
Well, all of our motions are in the affirmative, so yes, and then you can either vote yes or no on that motion, right?
And by my record, we haven't even opened up this resolution yet. So
I don't believe so.
when we get there, you can make it one way or the other.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve resolution 2022-79.
And I would second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any other discussions? Okay.
I think, I'll just say, I think it's worth talking more, and I hope your clients will talk more. I just think we're here, might as well continue until we know we're not going to continue any farther with this, so.
Put it.
So, yeah, just keep us all informed as things move along, and
Of course.
then that way, if people have concerns, we can talk about it again.
All right. Mary, could we have a roll call, please?
Wason,
Aye.
Rummel,
Aye.
Siddiq,
Aye.
Harrington.
Aye.
Resolution 2022-79 passes in the affirmative. Thank you all for your discussion. Molly, thank you for enlightening us here a little bit tonight and being part of this discussion.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Item 14 is the employee handbook, and this is resolution number 2022-80, a resolution approving the updated employee handbook.
So move.
There we go.
Second.
All right. Do we need any discussion? Oh, we do. All right, go ahead.
Yep,
Brent.
just quick, so, yeah, I like how we set the vacation policies and everything. I just want to make sure that people are getting the opportunity to take their vacation.
Absolutely. I
Because, you
couldn't
know-
tell you that the last time we had to deny any vacation. I don't
Right,
know if we've
'cause,
ever
you know,
denied it.
The state's buying back our vacation because we can't get it, so.
No, it's, we probably have a bigger problem with people asking to, or wanting to take it off than,
Okay, so we're getting enough. Okay, I just want to make sure that.
Any other questions for Ryan? All right. Mary, we'll do roll call.
Rummel,
Aye.
Wason,
Aye.
Harrington,
Aye.
Siddiq.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 15 is the DOT's drug and alcohol policy, and this is resolution number 2022-81, a resolution approving the DOT drug and alcohol policy. Have a motion to open this discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Mary, roll call, please.
Siddiq,
Aye.
Wason,
Aye.
Rummel,
Aye.
Harrington.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16 is the surplus property disposal policy, and this is resolution number 2022-82, approving the surplus property disposal policy. Could I have a motion to open this discussion?
So move.
Second.
Any questions about this? Ryan, you're getting off easy here tonight. Mary, roll call, please.
Harrington,
Aye.
Siddiq,
Aye.
Rummel,
Aye.
Wason.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 17 is an assessment resolution for resolution number 2022-83, a resolution assessing delinquent amounts owed to the city of North Liberty, Iowa to the two individual property taxes. A motion to open this
So
discussion.
move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions about this? Mary, roll call, please.
Wason,
Aye.
Harrington,
Aye.
Sittig,
Aye.
Brumel.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 18 is Buck Moon preliminary plat, and item A is staff and commission recommendations. Russ, I will start with you.
This is formerly known as the Liberty Villas subdivision. It's located at east side of Dubuque Street, just south of Scales Bend Road. Consists of 61 single-family residential units, 7 townhouse lots on about 24 acres. It's generally consistent with the concept plan that was presented during the rezoning. One big comment we had was accepting the drainage from the Fox Run subdivision. At first, the original design showed the proposed bike trail along the north property line, but that conflicted with the stormwater, so we had ask for them to move it into the subdivision. So we do still have that east-west connection, and it makes its way up to the trail at Fox Run and Cedar Springs. So Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval at its July 5th meeting, and staff does as well.
Any questions for Russ?
We changed the name of the street.
Yes, we did. Thank you for that.
Can you speak to sidewalk continuation? I see it on the map here. Once the sidewalk is put in along Dubuque Street, will that then force Alliant to put that one in there and then down by Mid-American Energy?
I think we're going to have a little bit further conversations with that, but that would be the ultimate goal. We've got a railroad spur crossing, which can be a challenge.
Yeah.
But I do think that trail connection is an important one.
Certainly. Okay. All right, item B is applicant presentation. Sitting back in the corner quietly waiting for his moment.
My name's Brad Cummins. Like Ryan said, this is pretty much the same plan as you saw when it was Liberty Villas, other than the movement of that sidewalk and that trail. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Let me know if you need anything.
Any questions for Brad? Thanks for sitting here with us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, item C is resolution number 2022-84, resolution approving the preliminary plat for Buck Moon Villas, North Liberty, Iowa. Have a motion for this one, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions?
Oh, still looks cool.
It does look cool. All right, Mary, can we roll call, please?
Brumel,
Aye.
Wason,
Aye.
Harrington,
Aye.
Sittig.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 19 is Mickelson rezoning. And item A is public hearing regarding proposed rezoning application. So now is the time for anyone in the public that has any comment for our rezoning proposal. Seeing none out there. I do recognize that we had how many? 7?
We had 8 formal
8
objections.
formal?
Yep.
All right. Item B, staff and commission recommendations.
Okay, so they do have existing zoning as RS6. They are looking to rezone portion of it to RS9, which is a smaller single-family lot on 2.29 acres, and RD10, which is a zero lot line on 7.05 acres. This is at the northern terminus of Morrison Street, just west of Jones. As I previously indicated, we are starting to see denser land use requests with rising interest rates and construction costs. Originally, during those initial conversations with Andy and Kevin, we kind of looked at kind of having a homogeneous line so that it didn't break off in the middle of a block. So RS6 would be maintained along the existing block. You have RD10 just to the north of that. It was hard to make a break line for Morrison Street there. We also asked for the RS6 to be maintained along the future Collector Street, Remley Street, to minimize the number of curb cuts in there. I'd point to a number of subdivisions that have a mixture of these types of land uses. The Preserve is one that was recently approved, has a good mix of zonings and land uses in there. Cedar Springs does as well. I think that continues that mix of housing types. Some of the objections that we heard was, wanting to maintain the entire subdivision as RS6. They felt like they bought into that and wanted to keep it all as RS6. And also the increase in traffic. I can understand that people would want to keep a relatively homogeneous neighborhood, but things do change. I disagree with the amount of additional traffic. If you talk about that number of units, that generally equates to about 200 extra cars spread out throughout the day. And with Remley Street going in, it'd be split between the north and the south. So Planning Commission did recommend approval at their July 5th meeting. There was one commissioner who voted no. My understanding from that vote no is it didn't have so much of a problem with the RS9. It seemed like the two-family zoning that seemed to be the issue. But again, I point to those examples in the city that we have those already. And I think that's what makes North Liberty a little stronger than other communities, is having that mix of housing types, even within same subdivisions.
Thank you, Russ. Item C is applicant presentation.
Good evening, John Marner with MMS Consultants representing the applicant. I echo the points that Ryan made. The current demands in the housing market, interest rates and some other things are lead themselves or have led to this interest in trying to find a way to still provide housing price points for a mixed variety that doesn't get excessively large, up in the 500,000, 600,000 range. Try to find something that can be a little lower in price point, similar to maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. One of the other subdivisions that he mentioned, or he didn't mention, but it's in the area, Harvest Estates, has a mix of that RD10 zoning located in the central portion with the surrounding RS4 and R6 zoning around the perimeter of it. So I think that's another housing type or a development that tends to have the same development. The other thing I'd add is these particular lots have extra depth. Most of the lots, when you find RS6 in RS4 zoning, typically they're 130 to 140, maybe 150 feet in depth. These particular lots, the existing lots all are in the 175 to 180 foot deep range. And these proposed lots, as shown on the current concept plan for the RD10, are also 175 to 180. So there is extra depth built in that provides a little more opportunity for larger backyard separation between these different uses. And again, the RS9, as I've stated before, to various points in front of the council, is an opportunity to provide those diversity in the neighborhood in the housing types of smaller single family mixed in with the larger single family or medium-sized single family, and then again with the zero lots. And I'm available for any questions if you have any. I think Andy Hodge is available also.
Thank you, John. Item D is first consideration of ordinance number 2022-16. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 167 of the North Liberty Code of Ordinances by amending use regulations on property located in North Liberty, Iowa, to those set forth in the municipal code for the RS9 single-unit residence district and RD10 two-unit residence district. Could I have a motion to open this conversation?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. You guys have anything to add to this or any context or opinion?
I was just going to ask if anyone knows when Remley Street will be going in.
We put it in next spring, we'd start. We'd hope to get foundations in next fall.
So it will be a part of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So generally, we have moved a plan to move from lower density to higher density in housing. But here, when we have this RD9 zone, we have the least dense single-family housing in the town butting up against the most dense single-family housing in the town, which I suspect is what a lot of people are having problems with. I think one of the issues where some of the other places that, have the mixed zoning is they're all new. And so they've just built that way. In Harvest Estates, there was a big fight about getting all of that in there, the way it was at the time and stuff. So, and actually the RD10 in the middle of that actually looks okay and stuff. I'm not in favor of the RS9. I'd leave it at RS6. So I will not support the RS9 in that section.
Keisha?
Yeah,
I'm looking at you, so if you're
I would
ready to
say
talk, by all means.
I second Wason's comments. I think that, the placement of it towards the back of the community as opposed to the front, from with regards to the approach off of Jones Boulevard. It makes it a little bit more unique than what is existing here. And I understand some of the concerns that the residents have in Mickelson Estates at the moment.
And I understand that we're going to, try to generally be less dense as we move in. We've got a long way to go into this property, and I might hesitate to have it be RS6 or 4 from here on out. So I actually would kind of like to have some of this RS9, maybe RD10 sprinkled in throughout the development as it progresses westwardly. Maybe as a larger block. Brian, I get your point on it being set right now. The expectation was it being RS6. We do bigger blocks. We need to be including RS9. That being said, we've got this helps to make vibrant communities, diverse communities. And I don't think the RS9 should just be exclusively for the front of properties like Front Street or even down on Forever Green Road. I think they need to be sprinkled from here on out to Jones Boulevard as this whole thing develops out. I'm sorry, to Kansas Avenue.
Yep.
And I like the fact that there is a good range of different types of housing available.
Mm-hmm.
And I just reiterate, I think one of the earlier concepts we saw had the RS9 along Remley Street, but I think Kevin and I talked about it a lot, is really that just increases the number of curb cuts you have on a collector street, which has more traffic.
Right.
So I just have a question. Do we have any restrictions on voting? Or how this has to pass?
Not tonight. I think we don't have the, no.
Okay.
We need 3 affirmative votes to pass this one.
But they didn't meet 20% or
Correct.
whatever they, okay.
Correct. Thanks for that clarification. That's a good point.
It doesn't really matter, I guess, right?
I would have mentioned maybe.
You guys have anything else that you want to add or discuss or try to convince each other on?
So, well, my intent is if we leave the RS9 in there, I would vote no. So
Are you saying to take it out?
I would leave it RS6
Okay.
because that's where it is now.
Correct.
Yep. And I think we kind of fought that battle already once. So,
Split these motions.
Glad you're bringing this up now.
well, so is, if, I'm not sure, Ashley, how
RS9 would just
you
add
feel.
more houses.
But if we don't, then they'd have to start over again. So,
And the proposal as it is right now.
We can do that, right? Amend-
Yes, you can
amend.
move to amend right now if that's, if you want to, and then approve that to amend the proposal, then,
Okay.
and then vote on the underlying amended map, if that's what you want to do.
Okay, so let's kind of get a heads up here. How do people feel about the proposal as it is right now? All right, so what we can do, as Grant just indicated, is that we can make a motion to amend this resolution and vote on that.
Yes, that
and
will amend
then
the resolution.
That'll amend the resolution, and then go back to voting on the resolution itself, which is the new amended
Ordinance, yeah.
resolution.
So it's an ordinance, but this is,
Excuse me.
yeah, we wouldn't have to start over. This is substantially similar. We're talking about the same land. We're talking about rezoning this land. Everyone has notice of this. So this would be a permissible amendment if you want to do that.
All right, so if anyone would like to make a motion to amend this, now's the time.
so I would like to move to amend that the RS9 section be returned to RS6.
So move.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. We all ready to vote on that amendment then, to change that 9 to a 6? All right,
I think it just becomes withdrawn, right? Or does it, because
No,
it's already RS6, so it just,
Yeah.
you
Oh, does it
rezone from
come-
RS6 to RS6, so I guess it just becomes withdrawn.
Well, is there any other changes in this proposed?
As I understand it, the RD10 would remain as is.
Yeah, that was my intent.
Yes. Yeah, so I don't think needs to be anything withdrawn. I think that's phrased properly.
Okay, thank you.
Mary, you ready for this one?
Yep.
Okay, this is roll call on the amendment.
Harrington,
Aye.
Wason,
Aye.
Brumel,
Aye.
Siddick.
Nay.
Motion carries 3-1. All right, now we're back to a somewhat original ordinance, but now with the amendment, changing the RS 9, leaving it as an RS 6. Roll call this one, Mary?
So we got to make a motion to move.
It's already been moved.
This has already been moved.
Yep. Yep.
Harrington,
Aye.
Gleason,
Aye.
Siddick,
Nay.
Aye.
Motion carries once again 3-1.
Done.
Good? Okay. Thank you all. Item 20. The CMW Properties rezoning, and this is item A is public hearing regarding proposed rezoning application. Again, if there's anyone in the public that has comments to add in our rezoning of this property, please make yourself known. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Item B is staff and commission recommendations.
Okay, so this is property at the southeast corner of Dubuque Street and North Liberty Road. There's 4 parcels. The CMW Properties owns 3 of them along Dubuque Street, and they have the parcel right below it under contract. So we've been talking with them over the past several months. The south parcel was annexed recently, and bringing the parcels in together for a rezoning to the C3 district. It's a higher intensity commercial district, which is a newer classification in the zoning ordinance and allows for a mixture of commercial and residential uses. They can be horizontal mixed use, or they can be vertical. It just gives them that flexibility. To me, this is an ideal location because you're at the intersection of 2 arterial roads. That's really where you want to see your higher intensity commercial. So we had a neighborhood meeting on June 15th. No one attended except for me and Mike. Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval at its July 5th meeting, and staff does as well.
Thanks, Russ. Item C is applicant presentation.
Hello, Mike Welch with Welch Design and Development, representing the applicant. I think Russ kind of covered everything pretty well, but if you have questions or comments, happy to answer them.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for sitting there with us so far. Any questions for Mike? Don't think he probably did. All right, item D is first consideration of ordinance number 2022-17. And this is an ordinance amending chapter 167 of the North Liberty Code of Ordinances by amending the use regulations on property located in North Liberty, Iowa to those set forth in North Liberty, Iowa, to those set forth in the municipal code for C3 higher intensity commercial district. Have a motion for this one, please.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions? All right, Mary, roll call, please.
Siddick,
Aye.
Gleason.
Aye.
Harrington,
Aye.
Brumel.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks again, Mike, for sitting there. Item 21 is Scanlon and trustees of Penn Township rezoning. And this is item A on this one is also a public hearing regarding proposed rezoning application. Anyone else left in the audience here for this item? Well, you drew the short straw on this one for sure here tonight. Seeing no public comment, I'll move to item B, which is staff and commission recommendations.
Okay, so this is a property at the southeast corner of Oakland Northeast and North Liberty Road. It's 36.32 acres, recently annexed, requesting the RS4 zoning. One of the more unique things about this, although I don't think it has the official designation, there is a classified as a pioneer cemetery on the property that currently has no access to it. It's my understanding the last burial there was over 100 years old. I don't think they would any intentions of expanding the cemetery, but the ultimate develop that the Scanlon and the trustees have talked about is providing public access to that. We did have a neighborhood meeting in conjunction with the rezoning. We did have some objection from the Fjords North residents. They seem to be primarily technical, related to stormwater and access of Oak Lane Northeast. We're trying to see if they can work through those issues. The preliminary plat was on the same agenda. We recommended that the Planning Commission table that preliminary plat to see if they could work out those issues. So this is strictly a zoning issue. And so staff's of the opinion, and same with Planning Commission, they recommended unanimously for approval that RS4 zoning is appropriate in this location. So
If I can interject, I'm sorry. My understanding was the objections had to do with the preliminary plat, not the rezoning component.
That's correct.
And that's when they got up and spoke about it. It was about the plat, not the rezoning.
Thanks for that clarification. Any questions for us? All right, item C is applicant presentation. I don't think there's anyone here for applicant presentation. So we'll move on to item D, and this is first consideration of ordinance number 2022-18, an ordinance amending Chapter 167 of the North Liberty Code of Ordinances by amending the use regulations on property located in North Liberty, Iowa to those set forth in the municipal code for the RS4 single unit residence district. Could I have a motion to open this conversation, please?
So moved.
Second.
Then moved and seconded. Any questions? Mary, roll call, please.
Wason,
Aye.
Brumel,
Aye.
Harrington,
Aye.
Aye.
Item carries. Item 22, finally, ITC Midwest franchise. And item A is the public hearing regarding proposed franchise with ITC Midwest. Anyone in the audience for public hearing? You can, yeah.
What's that? It was skip the
Zoning ordinance?
No, it's next.
Okay, thank you. This is out of order on mine. Thank you.
It's
Sorry about that.
It's your shining moment, wasn't it?
And I
Slipped
just
by.
stumbled right off the starting block, didn't I?
All right. You're welcome to, we can jump you in this one to the next part of the agenda item. So please, by all means.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Glad everybody can stick around. I'm Sydney Lovell. I am the area manager for ITC Midwest, and I've been working with the city on the franchise language. And I guess, first of all, thank you for letting me be here tonight and just even say a couple of comments. But I do have to thank the city and especially Mr. Leentz for all of his efforts in making sure that I think what we put together was a robust franchise with language that was approved by both ITC and the city. And we went through several drafts with our legal counsel. And I really felt like we took the time that was needed to make sure it was going to be an appropriate fit for the city of North Liberty as well. I guess the only other thing I like to mention when I come to some of these meetings is just to make sure everybody understands who ITC Midwest is. We purchased the assets, the transmission assets only of Alliant Energy back in 2007. And since that time, for the last 14 years, we have been really investing in the transmission system and rebuilding much of what had not probably been under invested for several years. So that's really what we've been working on. That is, I look at us as still kind of a newer company since we really were just created in 2007. Yeah, so again, thank you to the city for working on this, but I will answer any questions that you might have regarding the franchise.
All right. You don't have to go all the way back to your seat. You can sit in the front row if you want. I need to open this discussion
Okay,
here. And
sounds good.
if there are any questions. Thank you, by the way. Item B is first consideration. This is a doozy. You guys sit back. First consideration of ordinance number 2022-19, an ordinance granting ITC Midwest LLC, a wholly owned subsidiary of ITF Holdings Corp., its successors and assigns the company the right and franchise to acquire, construct, reconstruct, erect, maintain, operate, and remove in the city of North Liberty, Johnson County, Iowa, a transmission system for electric power and energy, and the right to erect and maintain the necessary poles, lines, wires, conduits, and other appliances, equipment, and substations for the transmission of electric current and telecommunications along, under, and upon the streets, avenues, alleys, and public places in the city of North Liberty, Johnson County, Iowa, for the period of 10 years, and granting the right of eminent domain.
I'll just notice that was their title.
I didn't think it came from you, Grant. I wasn't going to place this one at your feet. Oh, boy.
Correction on that?
Yeah.
It's ITC Holdings, not ITF Holdings.
Oh,
And if you
sorry.
pulled
I
that
was
from our
reading it.
website, I'll be sure to take that back.
I was reading it verbatim here, so
Nope, ITC Holdings.
thank you. Could I have someone open this one, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. You guys have questions, comments? It seems as
These are like the power poles and stuff.
yes.
Big ones.
The big ones.
Thank you, Grant. The big ones. That's really how we describe it.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to staff for all the work that you did on this, because I know I've seen the initial asks to cities, and this is far from that. So I appreciate the work that you did to get us what we need to make sure that we're not being overrun by the big pools.
Notwithstanding that, I want to say that Ms. Lovell and ITC staff were surprisingly good to work with. I told her this on the phone the other day. I had my guard up when we were first approached by for this, and they have impressed me. And I think been forthright and accommodating in every reasonable respect along the way. It's been good working with them.
Thanks for that note, Eric. That's a good point. Anything else? All right, Mary, let's have a roll call on this one.
Brumel. Aye. Harrington.
Aye.
Wason.
Aye.
Aye.
First consideration carries. Thank you very much.
you.
Thanks for sitting there with us tonight. All right, Russ, it's your big moment. Item 23 is the zoning ordinance amendment. This is a public hearing and regarding proposed ordinance amendments. Does anyone in the audience, Guy, have anything to offer for public hearing comments? Sorry, Russ. Public hearing is closed. Item B then is first consideration of ordinance number 2022-20, an ordinance amending chapters 165, 168, 169, and 180 of the North Liberty Code of Ordinances regarding the construction plan approval process and standards, surface and subsurface drainage requirements, restoring building trades, services to use matrix and clarifying landscaping plan requirements, and amending dumpster enclosure requirements. Could I have a motion to open this conversation, please?
So moved.
Second.
Russ, did ITC provide the guidance on this one as well on the
They
ordinance?
did. Well, interestingly, we realized that or I should say, I omitted a use that's they would fall under AC contractors, plumbers, and things like that. And it was brought to our attention by actually a local business who wants to relocate. And so we've been working with them to reintroduce that back into the code. And you take this opportunity to pile a few things on that you wrote down in the parking lot. And so that's what this is.
That's great. That's great. I know that this is stuff that excites you and this get you a little further across
Anybody wants to
country.
stay late after the meeting and talk,
My gosh.
You'll be on your bike.
That's nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for dark.
You'll be going home. All right. Does anyone have any questions for Russ? All right. Seeing none, Mary, can we have a roll call, please?
Harrington.
Aye.
Wason.
Aye.
Siddick.
Aye.
Brumel.
Aye.
First consideration carries. I get to do this again 2 more times. All right, item 24 is our park speed limits. This is third consideration and adoption of ordinance number 2022-13, and an ordinance amending the traffic speed regulations for parks, cemeteries, and parking lots. Could I have a motion for this consideration?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any additional questions, comments, concerns? Mary, roll call, please.
Wason.
Aye.
Siddick.
Aye.
Harrington.
Aye.
Brumel.
Aye.
Our ordinance, and it's now adopted. Thank you all. And our last item is item 25. This is our closed session. And this is a proposed closed session according to Iowa Code Section 21.51J to discuss the purchase of particular real estate where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price of the government body would receive for that property.
An amendment to that, or a typo, I think it would pay for that property.
Thank you. And it's under our purview or us to go into closed session for this.
It is permissible to do so. You'll
Thank
need
you.
a motion to do that.
Need a motion.
I move that we go into closed session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and I need a roll call on this. Mary,
Harrington.
Aye.
Wason.
Aye.
Siddick.
Aye.
Brumel.
we're now in closed session. We stay here, go back.
emptied. It's nice inside. Look with my trailer out the back. Yeah, I don't know. Well, look, I guess we can always look at it.
Yeah.
Hate just to tear down. But maybe it's an Airbnb.
On my own password.
That guy wants to get into residential.
All right, let's move on to item 26. Is there anything for old business for council tonight? Seeing none, item 27 is new business. Seeing none, could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Second.
It's moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all for your time and attention tonight.
Thank you.
Did you get that last one, Mary?
He had to keep Rancho House running.